Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Fire Chief Scott Burnett of the Asheville Fire Department, and you are listening to the SA Matters radio show with Dr. Rich Gassaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from Joint Base Lewis McChord, where I'm delivering 4 days of situational awareness training for civilian and military firefighters. While here, I got to mark a couple of items off my bucket list, including participating in live fire training exercises with an aircraft crash simulator. Thank you to Chief David Wilhelm and Chief Ron Glickman for giving me this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In today's episode, we're going to hear from Lieutenant Jeff Cheshire of the Speedway, Indiana Fire Department. On June 30th, 2008, an intense wind-driven blaze destroyed an apartment building in Speedway. As crews arrived on the scene, large columns of black smoke were filling the sky at this building located at I-465 North and Hollister Drive. The fire started about 3:21 p.m. and quickly spread as high winds from the north pushed the fire through the building. Lieutenant Cheshire, then serving as a firefighter on Engine 202, recounts how his crew got overrun by rapidly changing fire conditions and how another fire crew got blown down a set of stairs by what was later described as a backdraft or a smoke explosion. The lessons that Jeff are going to share include the need to pay attention to clues that indicate unusual conditions, the need to trust your gut and speak up when you sense something is not right, the need to overcome your concerns about what others will think of you if you suggest it might be time to leave the firefight, the need to rely on your training and apply the lessons from training to the fireground. Let's jump into our interview with Speedway, Indiana Lieutenant Jeff Cheshire.
Well, it was June 30th, and it was a mid-afternoon, I want to say around 3 o'clock. We had just kind of had a late lunch that day, and we'd been kind of busy with EMS runs earlier in the day. And we had just kind of sat down and taken a load off for a few minutes, and the tones dropped around 3:15 for a report of an apartment fire. And I remember looking at our engineer, and when I don't think anybody's going to get any rest today, thinking, we were just trying to just take a load off and couldn't even do that. And we just kind of laughed about it, and jumped on the truck, and we weren't 30 seconds out the door.
What was your crew size, Jeff?
Our crew size, we had 3 assigned to the engine that day.
Okay.
And normally we would have 4, but we had some people off on vacations and things, so we were running kind of a skeleton crew that day.
Okay, and how many? What would respond to a report of an apartment fire? What companies, what departments? What do you got coming to this? Is it just the 3 of you, or is there more coming?
Oh no, we would have engine 202, which was the engine I was on. We would have engine 201, which was the engine at the other firehouse. We've got 2 firehouses in our town.
Okay.
And there's a ladder. We have a ladder 201 that those 3 pieces from Speedway are responding.
Mm-hmm.
We also have an additional ladder coming from the city, Indianapolis, or Wayne Township. We have another 2 or 3 engines coming with from Wayne Township or the city as well. That would be a normal response. We would get a battalion chief in that mix as well. So that's what's rolling on the first report of the department.
Okay, so you got some resources on the way. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. We definitely have a lot of manpower coming.
Okay.
Well, we have enough manpower coming for initial alarm anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we had just turned out of the firehouse, and we all of us at once said, "Man, we're working because we could smell it. You could smell the fire in the air." It was a real windy day. Our firehouse was east of where this fire apartment is, so the wind's blowing it right to us. So we knew we were working, and we ran up High School Road, and it just the smell just got more and more. We turned into the apartment complex and went 0.2 of a mile to turn right on this one on the street where the building is located. And of course, I'm riding backwards, so I don't see this. My the captain on the engine that day said, "It looks like we've got some fire coming through the roof." So we stopped at the hydrant, wrapped the hydrant, and took off. The engine took off. We probably laid about 200 feet, maybe, of 5-inch supply. And the next engine company came up and said, "Hey, go up with your guy. We'll charge the line." I already had the hydrant hooked up. I just hadn't had it turned on yet. And so I ran up to get on the hand line with the captain. And
what'd you have for fire showing, or was it just smoke at this point?
No, the captain said it looked like it was coming through the roof on the back side of this U-shaped apartment.
How many units in this apartment?
Oh my gosh!
Estimate in the building.
50 plus.
Oh, okay, big building.
Yeah, it's a good sized building.
2-story?
It's 2.5 story. Yeah,
okay.
There's a sub level. Then there's the what would be considered the middle floor, and then there's the top floor.
So three levels of apartments.
3 levels of apartments, correct. And
okay.
It's in a U shape, and if you can picture the U facing west, that would be how the building is set up. Technically, it's 3 separate buildings, but they are the corners of each building touch. I don't know if that can give you a good picture of what the landscaping of this situation would look like, if you will.
Okay.
But the wind was out of the west that day, and it was windy. 16, maybe 20-mile-an-hour winds that day, pretty steady. And the wind's blowing into the U of this building. And keep in mind, too, we had a major delay in this 911 call. The community is mostly Hispanic, and where the fire originated, the homeowner called the maintenance staff of the community a couple times and hung up a couple times, and then finally, after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes of this going on, the maintenance staff just got in the car and drove down to where this lady was calling from, because that's the only thing she could say. Apparently was just the address. And as they pulled up, they realized, oh my gosh, this whole building, or this whole apartment room is on fire. So they called 911. So there's a good 15 to 20-minute delay of fire response.
Wow.
Yeah. You couple that with the wind, where the fire originated. If again, picture your U shape, and the north side of the U shape. That apartment, the original, the fire origin apartment, is in that U shape, and the wind literally pushed that fire all the way around. It pulled it into the horizontal part of this building. That's probably not the best word to use, but
here, let me see if I can help you out with some terminology. We'll just think of a standard U, and we'll call the left side the left stem. We'll call the right side the right stem, and we'll call down where the U would be the belly.
Sure. Okay.
All right. So maybe that, as you're describing it, maybe that'll help out for the listener.
Yeah, that will. So it was in the corner of the belly, and the right stem is where the fire originated. Mm-hmm. The wind. This is all prior to our arrival. And we obviously didn't know this at the time. This information came to us much later through the incident, but the fire had gotten up in the attic of the belly apartment, and had gotten all the way down into the left stem apartment in the attic of that. Wow. Yeah. The wind had just pushed it right on around. These apartments are a little bit older. Most of the firewalls in there have been compromised, multiple times, I'm sure. So,
where were you guys located? When you came in, were you on the inside of the U, the outside of the U?
We're on the outside of the U. The hydrant that was hit is very near the left stem and the belly, in that general area. And we hit that hydrant and went to where the belly and the right stem of the building would kind of come together, and that's where we stopped to give room for ladder companies to get in. Mm-hmm. And that's when we noticed that it looked like the fire was coming through the roof at that point. So we make entry into the apartment, and the first crew had gone downstairs into the bottom, and they forced a couple doors down there and found perfectly clear conditions, no smoke of any kind. We went to the third floor at that point, and we were met with just perfect conditions. It was clear at the top landing. There was no smoke. Like I said, it was almost like looking out a picture window, and that's how clear it was. And we forced the apartment door to the left, and we forced the apartment door to the right. And it took a while because it was like somebody was pushing on the door from the other side. That's the best way I can explain it. Like somebody was trying to keep us out, but there was nobody there. The apartment door to the left, that was a vacant apartment, and when we finally forced that door and got in, and it was a process. It probably took us 60 seconds to get that door open, which felt like an eternity at the time. We got the door open, and the conditions were perfectly fine. They were clear as could be. And about 10 seconds after we got that door open, the search crew guys, which was a crew of 2 guys, had forced the door on the right side of the landing, and they forced that door, and they probably got 3 feet inside that door, and the heat just started pushing us all to the ground. It was hot. There's no other way to say it. It was hot. It was one of the hottest things.
Describe the smoke.
Very limited. It wasn't smoky at all at first, but then it's like somebody flipped a switch and opened up a damper, and the smoke just went from pretty clear, no problem to see at all, to you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It went from conditions that you would say, oh, there's no fire in this building, to we have a major problem on our hand right now. The heat.
How far were you into that apartment when that happened?
The search crew guys were 5 feet inside the door. The hand line was 2 feet behind them, maybe right there. And
what do you attribute to the change of conditions so suddenly?
I thought about that over and over the years, especially. And of course, you sit around the coffee table at the firehouse and you talk about those things. And the only thing I can think of is that the ceiling in the apartment that we were in, maybe towards the very back corner, which just so happened to be the corner closest to the original fire apartment. I think the ceiling kind of gave away, and the heat and the smoke just pushed through that.
From above.
From above, yeah. I think because, and what makes me think that is that the pressure that was behind the doors. We've forced doors in these apartments dozens and dozens of times leading up to this fire. And I know from those experiences that you can force a door in these apartments so easily. It takes us 20 seconds to force a door into these apartments under normal conditions. And for us to have the trouble that we did forcing those doors, there was pressure building up somewhere in this building.
When you guys forced the entry, could you feel any outward pressure of air when you finally got the door open?
I don't recall feeling that at all.
Okay.
The guys on the other side might have a different feeling on that, but I don't remember feeling like a gust of pressure or wind come at me once that door was open. I just remember once I got that door more than halfway open, it kind of pushed open, and I remember thinking, man, that was kind of weird. And I remember the lieutenant on the other engine, sitting at the stairway, going, "Come on, fellas, get those doors open. They're not that hard." And I remember kind of chuckling at that because he was right. Those doors are normally forced so easily, and to have the trouble that we did should have been warning number one in hindsight, that something was amiss, something was different. But once we got the other side open and moved, the search crew, I said, we're probably 5 feet inside the door, and we were a couple 3 feet behind them, and the heat and the smoke just changed right now, and it pushed us to the carpet. The search crew guy has the thermal cam in front of him, and I remember him yelling, "The thermal cam's not working, it's all glowing." And when at the time you're thinking, oh, maybe the camera broke, but the camera was fine. That's how much heat was up in this building where we were looking, that the camera couldn't distinguish anything else. It was all heat.
Wow.
And I remember once we're like, holy cow, this is hot. I've never felt anything that hot in my life. And we backed up to the entryway again, as we were going to hit it with some water and then try to make another push into this apartment. We had been told that there were people, that apartment was occupied. The apartment on the other side of the landing was not occupied. So we felt due diligence obviously was to make sure that apartment was cleared out. When the search crew guys backed up a little bit and the smoke just got thicker and thicker, we were there wasn't anything we could do at that point. And the next thing I heard was the horn.
Was that smoke all the way down to the floor?
Yes, all the way down, and making its
Zero
way,
visibility.
Zero, and it was making its way down the stairway.
Ooh.
Yeah, it went from you can see perfectly clear to smoke halfway down the 2.5-story stairway in seconds. And the only thing I can attribute that to was, maybe a window or a door or the ceiling had failed, and it allowed that to come in and push us to the floor more. In hindsight, the wind had pushed that fire so far that we were going to lose that building whether we were there 10 minutes earlier or not, because the way that the wind had just driven that fire all the way around. It was in the attic. The building, to kind of give you a description of this, the roof line on this building is it's a mansard roof, but there's windows in the mansard part where the third floor would be. So like the exterior of the third floor walls, that's a mansard roof. And we've had fires in there before that, and we've had many fires in there after that. And if we have a building in there with a mansard roof, it always ends up in the attic in that style of building. And so we were behind the 8 ball from the very beginning on this one because of the wind and the delay and calling 911, and just when we actually finally made some progress to get inside, and the heat and I call it the rapidly changing conditions, because Dr. Gasway, that's how I was taught in the academy. On my flashover warning signs, I remember the academy instructor saying, don't rely on the heat to tell you the whole story. You have to take, these other factors included. And he kept hitting on over and over and over that the rapidly changing conditions should be your biggest indicator that something bad is about to happen. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in that landing thinking, this changed way too fast. Something bad is about to happen. And I remember thinking that, but I was a pretty new guy at the time. I only had 6 years on the job at the time, and I remember thinking, we might think about backing up here a little bit. That's what's running in my head. And luckily, before I got a chance to say that out loud, they were blasting the horns on the outside, telling us to get out. And that's when the captain fell and hurt his shoulder.
Hold on.
Yep.
you're saying with 6 years you're kind of a new guy. I don't know that a 6-year person's necessarily kind of a new guy, but maybe among the staffing that you have, 6 years would be new. But you were saying you thought about leaving. I'm guessing you didn't speak up.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't say to my captain or the search crew guys that were sitting next to me. I didn't say it. I thought, I'm not. Honestly, I told myself, well, I'm not going to be the one that says that. That's what I told myself. And
thank you. That was a powerful lesson right there.
Do what?
That was a powerful lesson right there to admit that you didn't want to be the person to speak up among a crew, because I see this running as a theme among firefighters is, who among us wants to be the one to speak up and say, hey, I think it's time to go.
Yeah.
There's just too much risk that the others are going to look at us like, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that is exactly what was running in my head was I'm not going to be that guy that says, hey fellas, we got to get out. I had a captain with 20 years right next to me. I had a lieutenant with 14 years right behind me, kind of. And I had, there was another guy with around 14 years on the job at the time. Then there was a guy that was pretty new, newer than me. I think he had probably 4 years on at the time.
Now, this is happening all the while that you have in your mind, you're recalling the lessons from where you were taught about the rapidly changing conditions and it not being good. That's on your mind right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's heavily on my mind right now.
Right.
I know that one of the search guys that is in front of me got trained through the academy by the exact same guy that trained me. So I know in my mind I can't be the only one thinking this. And I wasn't, obviously, after we all got a chance to talk about it.
But in the moment, nobody spoke up.
No. Well, no. The only thing that was being said up to that was, let's get the doors open. Come on, fellas, get the doors open. And then the next thing that was being said was, man, it is hot. And then, like I said, the search crew guy said, man, the camera's not working. It's only glowing.
So you had lots of clues.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And taking the lessons from that day to, to now, to tomorrow when I go back to work, those are all things that I know now. Hey, if I see these things, I'm speaking up now. I'm not going to take that chance again like that. But once the horn started blasting and telling us to get out, the captain fell and injured his shoulder. He was still able to self-extricate. And everybody was getting down the steps, and the hand line got kind of jerked out of my hand at the time. So I lost my way out for a second. And I remember I was on the landing at the top step, and I just kind of reached out and I didn't feel the step. So I thought, where am I? And I reached back and I touched the handrail, the metal handrail. It's in all these buildings that, like I said, we're in and out of these buildings all the time for EMS runs and everything else. So once I touched that handrail, I knew, okay, I know where I'm at. We're good. And I got it out. And I didn't know at this time, but another engine company had gone to the belly of this structure. There's two entrances. There's the north one that we went in, and there's the south one. That other engine company had gone into the south entrance and had gone up to the third floor and were trying to force the door, just making sure everybody was cleared out. There were ladder companies and engine companies in the left stem of the building that had already cleared that out. So this particular engine crew is Engine 201 crew, and it was a lieutenant and 2 backsteppers. They had made their way to the 3rd floor, and by their accounts, it was just hazy. It wasn't terribly smoky. They were able to walk, and everything was just hazy. They forced the door on the 3rd floor apartment on the right side of the landing. And when that door forced, we'll call it a backdraft, but I don't know that the fire investigators called it, confirmed that was really what it was. Again, there was so much pressure built up in those other apartments that I'm not sure where all this pressure was coming from. It had to have been from the smoke up in the attic, I'm guessing, at this point. But they, when they forced that door, they were met with, we'll call it a backdraft, and they were actually blown down to the next landing. They all,
Wow.
They picked each other up and they got out, and a couple of them had got their ears kind of burned up a little bit. Luckily, they're okay, and they didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. I don't know that they would have done if they had to be honest with you. That's how those guys are. A pretty tough group of guys. So.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Jeff.
Sure.
When with what your crew was doing and with what the crew that was doing that got blown down to the next landing, were you all engaged in a singular mission of rescue, or was anybody of the mindset that perhaps a stop could be made on the fire?
Well, at this time we had 2 chief officers on the scene that were running incident command. And I think, honestly, that we were still thinking at this point that maybe we can make a stop here and save one part of this stem, the left stem, if you will.
Okay.
But that was pretty short-lived. This is information that came to me, much later, even days later. I didn't know it was happening at the time of the incident, but one of the chief officers and a safety guy had walked completely around this U-shaped building and determined that the fire had made its way all the way down the belly from the right stem down the belly and into the left stem attic at this point. And it was even through the roof of the right stem apartments at that point. So there's a picture out there that shows the entryway of the right stem of the fire building, and it's 100% flame, floor to ceiling. It's one of the neatest pictures I've ever seen, actually. But it was there. You weren't going to make that apartment. You weren't going to be able to make entry into that area from that building. So, but the other phenomenon that kind of happened after those guys forced that door and got blown down was that every window in the 3rd floor started blowing out, and it it blew out from the north end of this apartment to the south end of this apartment, one after another. Because I was walking out of the building. I had just extricated out of the building, the first entryway, and these windows just bang, 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 one after another, all the way down, probably a dozen windows. And it had to be coming from this pressure that we met trying to get those doors open originally, that it just continued to build. And you know, I think about that, and I think about the fact that you know, that was different. That was a different environment, I guess is the best word, when we were trying to force that door. And you know, again, we could force these doors with a swift kick, and we couldn't force these doors very easily with all the proper training and the proper tools. There was pressure behind them, and that should have been an indicator for us. And maybe it was to one of the more seasoned guys. I'm not sure, but to me that was just different. That was you know, why are we having trouble with this door?
Mm-hmm.
And then
now they blew the air horns for you guys to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And where was that in the timing compared to the crew that got that forced the door and had the backdraft or smoke explosion or whatever bust them down to the next landing? Where in the context of time passing, where was that? How much time passed from the air horns till they were doing that, or was it at the same time?
No. The crew that went down to that other entryway, the crew that was blown down to the next level, that crew was inside with me. They were our backup line originally into the main entry that we had made, all original. When we first arrived on scene, there was my engine 202, and then there was the ladder crew of ladder 201, and then there was engine 201 crew. We were all in there, and when the horn blew to get out of there, engine 201 crew was the first crew outside, and the incident commander told that officer, go down to the next one, force the doors, make sure there's nobody in there, and get out. You're not fighting fire there, you're just making sure there's nobody there. So that crew had gone down there. So from the time the horn blew to get out of the building entryway that we had gone in, to the time that they were blown down to their from that top floor to the middle floor landing, couldn't have been 3 minutes. 3 minutes time frame there. I think that might be generous.
So we really had two close call events here. The one with you guys with the rapidly changing heat and smoke condition, and then the second event was when they got blown down that landing. So we're actually talking about two close calls, all within a 3 to 5 minute time span.
Right. And that looking back on that, I look at the training from my fire academy, and they would tell you, you know, these rapidly changing conditions is the thing to think about, and they'd follow that with, you know, one major change in a fire can lead to another one if, you know, there's not enough intervene in the right way, it's going to lead to another event. And that's a prime example. We had the event that we had upstairs, which maybe the attic flashed. I'm not sure. I would say that that's a distinct possibility that the attic could have flashed over, which caused us to be pushed to the carpet for the heat and then the smoke that follows. And follow that up with their close call at the next entry with being blown down to the next landing. You're right. There's two definite close calls there.
So at that point, does everybody get out?
At that point, everybody was out, and it was a defensive operation. At that point, we at this time, engine 201's a E1 Quint, so we got a ladder on top of our engine, and our engineer had already set up and was waiting for everybody to be out to open up on that. And so we had our engine, our Quint, at the right stem of the belly. There was another ladder from the city in the middle. And there was another ladder at the belly and the right stem. And then we ended up having brought another ladder in to kind of sit at the right stem and hit from over there. We had a water problem at this scene as well. We didn't have enough water pressure. We had 3 ladders in the air and not enough water pressure in this area to do what we needed to do. And I remember they had called for the water company to boost the pressure, and the water company said it's maxed out as it is. And they said, you're on the loop system that we had in that area. We just happened to be in an area where it was kind of at the end of the loop, so it wasn't the best water pressure anyway. And we ended up cutting a hole in the fence of the apartment community and running probably 200 or 300 foot of 5-inch to a neighborhood hydrant just to the north, and we had an engine up there that pumped from that hydrant in that neighborhood into a hydrant in the apartment community to give us pressure, and that kind of helped.
Jeff, you've had a few years since this event occurred, and I'm guessing that you've had some time to do some reflection and some thinking and some talking with other people. And from that, do you have any lessons that you'd want to share with folks about what you'd call the solid takeaways, or that change anything about the way you look at what you do as you progress from that incident? What could others benefit from what happened here with you guys?
Yeah, we've thought about this. I know I have, and I've talked to the guys that are on that scene with us, countless times about this fire. And the thing that I learned from this, and I would hope that maybe somebody listening to this thing might pick up on this, and if they ever find themselves in that situation, that they think, oh, okay, I better do something here, is number one, speak up. In the 6-7 guys that were inside that building with me at that particular time, 2 of us had been to a formal academy, and it just so happens we were the 2 youngest guys in the door. And the both of us, and the other guy and I have talked a lot, is we'd speak up. We would say, hey, guys, we back up here a little bit. Things are changing way too fast. we need to get some more intelligence on this thing, or get some more information, if you will, before we commit ourselves any farther.
Mm-hmm.
That probably being one of the biggest ones.
Did you have any discussion with the more senior members about your hesitation to speak up?
They've all the guys with the time on in that situation, they've all said, "Man, you gotta speak up. Speak up in those situations." And I will. I mean, obviously, things are a little bit different now. I've got a few more years under my belt and have some responsibilities now, but I didn't have then. That's not going to be a problem for me now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've encouraged my guys, my backsteppers, in those situations. Don't, if we're inside fighting fire and you see something, by all means, say it. Speak up, because it's a team effort, and what my eyes may not see and your eyes do might be the difference between us going home and us not going home.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest lesson I think I learned out of this was, making sure that my guys with my new guys might feel the way I did, back in 2008, and think, "Oh, I can't say anything. I don't want them to feel that way," and I've encouraged them, and I think I've done a pretty good job. I think they would all tell you now that I've given them the green light to speak up on those situations pretty well. So speaking up is the first thing I would encourage you guys to do in these situations. Is it doesn't matter how much time you have. If you feel, if you see something that the officer or the person in charge of that particular time didn't see, say it.
Mm-hmm.
Speak up.
Sometimes
the other thing,
sometimes the people that come out of the academy and their lessons are like new in their mind, they have things that they've just been taught that some of us have been around a long time have kind of lost touch with. Their lessons are fresh and brand new, and they might see or feel or sense something that some of us that have been around for decades, it might slide right past us, and there's the new person saying, "Hey, I just learned about this in the academy, and I'm seeing exactly what we just learned about here," and that could be really valuable if they would speak up.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's if I could have June 30th, 2008 back, I would absolutely speak up in that situation again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I probably would have mentioned to my officer at the time, or at least the lieutenant or my captain that was right there, "Hey, don't you guys think it's weird we couldn't force these doors very easily? These things are like paper doors, and we can't get them open. Isn't that weird?"
Mm-hmm.
I would have probably had, I would want some more senior insight as to why that might be happening at that time. Because that's, again, we
coupled with the fact that you're probably pretty hiked up on adrenaline, you would think that would make it easier to get through those doors.
Oh yeah, the adrenaline was definitely at the peak at that particular moment, and and for two good-sized grown men to not be able to force these doors with tools or feet or shoulders, because all those things are in play, should have been an indicator of there's something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's nothing, but this is not normal. We've forced dozens of doors in this apartment community since that day, and I can tell you they all forced just like they're supposed to. Real simple and real easy. But that day, whether it was the wind blowing them closed or the pressure that had built up, in there, they were not opening.
Mm-hmm. What are your other takeaways?
That would have been a good indicator of a good thing, but communication is the thing you just keep coming back to on this, and communicating the fact that, hey, things just change really, really fast. We need to get out, back up a little bit, because this is what I learned in the academy, and communicating that and not being afraid to communicate that to guys with 15, 20 years on the job is a big one. That's the one I come back to over and over, and when I think about this. So relying on your training is the big one. Now, I say that, and you have to be training to be able to rely on it. So if you're training and you've gotten a chance to get into the flashover chambers, on a fairly regular basis, remember that training. Remember what you were seeing and what you're feeling, and don't push that aside as, that was just that flashover chamber, because it's very, very much the same feeling. It's the extreme heat and the rapid change, and you can see it, now you can't, and just rely on your training, and don't be afraid to speak up if your training is fresh. And this goes back to the whole communication thing again. But I was out of the academy 5 years at this time, and another guy was out of the academy probably 3 or 4 years at the time, and we didn't speak up. We're the ones with the freshest, most recent knowledge, and we weren't speaking up. And that would be, if guys out there listening to this thing take one thing away, is young guys speak up, and older guys listen. Don't be afraid to hear what they have to say. Evaluate that information as fast as you can and make your own decision as the leader of the crew. But these guys coming out of the academy might have something fresh in their knowledge that guys with more time on the job might not.
Jeff, have you given any thought? Have you given any thought to how things would have been different if you guys would have been 20 feet further into that apartment?
Yeah, I have.
When you think about how close of a call it is, just think if we were 20 feet in and around some furniture and obstacles and stuff, and those conditions changed like that, you guys could have baked in place.
Yeah, I don't know that we could have crawled out fast enough.
Exactly.
I don't think that there'd be a handful of us that probably wouldn't be able to have a conversation if we were in there that much deeper. But
now I got
luckily
another.
That wasn't the case.
Yeah, I got another question for you that's kind of personal. When you left shift that day and you went home, did you tell your family?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't. I didn't. My wife had watched the news, so she knew that we were fighting a big fire, so I didn't really mention it. I told her that we were on a big fire, and I was really tired. I wanted to take a nap when I got home, but I didn't tell her how close it came. How another 15 or 20 feet might have made a big difference in our lives. But, no, I didn't tell her that.
Did you ever tell her?
Well, she's right down the hallway, so yes. Just now.
Well, I was gonna say if she doesn't know, you might want to try to keep her away from the podcast.
Yeah, she's. I think she's kind of peering around the corner right now at me and giving me that wife look that wives can do. So.
Oh no! So when you get off the phone, there's going to be a conversation.
Yeah, I'm a pretty lucky guy though. She knows.
You're not going to have another close call, are you?
I hope not. I certainly hope not.
Yeah.
They will. If I do, it's going to look a whole lot different than this one. I know because I won't allow myself to have those same mistakes.
I meant a close call with your wife.
Not that there were mistakes. I'm sorry.
I meant a close call with your wife.
Oh, those, yeah. I guess I've been married for almost 20 years. Those mistakes, we have close calls all the time.
Is there any other than the lessons you've shared? Is there any other lessons you'd want to embark upon the audience before we close out the show?
I tell people that my training saved my life in that situation. That the fact that I had been in the Flashover Academy and I'd just gotten out of the Fire Academy just a few years earlier, and I contribute the fact that my training definitely played a part in saving our tails that day. And I would just say, make sure you're doing it. Make sure you're training. Mm-hmm. If you're not out fighting fire on a regular basis, the only way to get that experience is to train that experience and to educate yourself. And that's what I try to do, is just continue to educate myself and to train in lieu of fighting, a couple fires a week or a couple fires every 2 weeks, or however many fires some of these guys are going on a regular basis. And if you're not doing that, if you're not doing it enough, then you got to be substituting that experience with training and education.
Great advice. Great advice. Jeff, thank you for taking some time to meet with me and for sharing your close call experience.
Sure.
I got some solid notes and solid takeaways, and I'm really, really, really thankful that you were able to sit down with me and have this conversation.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help, and hopefully I don't ever have to have this conversation with you again. And
it's like being called to the principal's office, huh?
Yeah. Hopefully it's about something else next time you and I get a chance to talk. Something that's we can all
fun.
laugh and have fun with.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing that amazing close call experience. Before I close today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and the organizations who's hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stops. Your efforts to bring the Situational Awareness Matters and decision-making classes to your region are greatly appreciated. Recently, programs were conducted for the Indiana Department of Homeland Security and the Greenfield Fire Department, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington, where I'm at now, and the Buckley Fire Department Recruit Academy class coming up on Thursday night. So that's this week, but thanks for hosting. Upcoming programs, if you're interested in attending, I'll be in Lodi, California Fire Department on June 1, the Illinois Fire Service Institute on June 4 to 7, the Montana Joint Fire Conference on June 10 to 11, the Prince Albert Fire Department in Saskatchewan on June 16th, the South Dakota Firefighters Association Conference on June 18th to 20th, the Spokane Fire Department on June 22nd, and the Flathead County EMS in Kalispell, Idaho on June 26 and 27. If you're interested in attending an upcoming SA Matters tour stop, just head over to the SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the home page that says Upcoming Event Schedule. So here's hoping there's a tour stop near you, and we'll get a chance to meet up. That's really cool. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners yet, please consider joining. There are over 5,000 members sharing ideas on how to improve situational awareness and how to make better decisions under stress. Membership is free, and when you sign up, you receive a special report that I've created just for new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. So if you're not a member, head over to the SA Matters website, click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says free membership. As a reminder, every episode of the SA Matters radio show has a corresponding show notes page on the samatters.com website. The most recent episodes scroll on the front of the homepage. For older episodes, to access them, you go to samatters.com / and then enter the episode number, which I always mention at the start of the show. So, for example, if you wanted to access episode 50, you would open up a browser, type samatters.com / 50. That'll take you to a page that contains the link to the show. You can play it right from there, and you can also access sometimes video, audio, photographs, depends on whatever the guests provide me. And you can also leave your feedback on the show right there on the show notes page as well. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can follow @RichGasaway or @SAMatters on Twitter. And thank you to the more than 14,000 who have connected with me on Twitter. And I appreciate your support of my mission. You can also get connected with me on Facebook by liking the SA Matters page on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. And thanks to all those who've connected with me there. I really, really do appreciate your support of my mission. Well, that's it. Episode 57 is complete. Thank you to my guest, Lieutenant Jeff Cheshire of the Speedway, Indiana Fire Department. Thank you to our sponsor, Midwest Fire, for supporting our mission. And thank you to our listeners for sharing some of your valuable time today. I really appreciate your support. If you have experienced or witnessed a near miss or close call and would like to be interviewed on this show, visit the SA Matters website and click on the Contact Us link. And I'll thank you in advance for sharing your lessons learned so others may live. If you like the show, please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and search for SA Matters Radio, SA Matters Radio, and subscribe to the podcast and leave your feedback. If you like the show, I'd really appreciate you giving a 5-star review as well. Not only does that motivate me, but it also helps others to find the show. If you've been inspired and you want to learn more about situational awareness, consider becoming a member of the SA Matters community. It's free. Just go to the homepage and click on the red box on the right side of the homepage. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.